Hello again, economics students. Now in this video, let's look at some calculations. First thing to note is you are allowed a calculator in economics as of this year. And if you were to look into your study design under macroeconomics or under any of the outcomes, you're going to find that you could get asked to calculate using real or hypothetical data. Now in this video, we're going to look at calculating real GDP. I've got some hypothetical data here because I made it up. But the ABS releases real GDP data each quarter. A quarter is 3 months, and it would not look too dissimilar to this if you were asked to calculate using real data. Now, we're going to do a calculation of real GDP value and real GDP growth over a number of periods. The first thing to note is whenever you get quoted a quarter, so this is the September 2022 quarter, what that really means is it's telling us what happened between, I can't write it here, between June and September. So if it gets quoted as the September quarter, you know that's the June to September quarter. And if it gets quoted as the December quarter, it's the September to December quarter, and so on. So if we were asked to not really calculate, but just identify what was the value of real GDP, so the value of GDP taking out the impacts of inflation in September 2022, in the September 2022 quarter, well, we'd see there it's 500, so $500 billion. Whoops. We're just really identifying there. What happens if we had to calculate the real GDP real GDP value over a year? Well, we just add the 4 quarters together. So that would be from September 2022 to September 2023. 4 quarters, 500 plus 501 plus 503 plus 500, and that would give us the total value of real GDP over the year. Let's move on to calculating rate of changes, or the rate of change, also known as growth or in percentage terms. There's 2 formulas. Hopefully you've seen these formulas before in your maths over your school time. Both of them will give you exactly the same answer, so it's totally up to you which one you want to use. Remember, you've got a calculator. All you got to do is know your formulas, plug in your data and into the calculator, and hopefully you get the correct answer. No, you will get the correct answer. So I'm going to use this top formula here. What we're doing is we're getting GDP at the end of the period and minusing the GDP figure at the start of the period. And what that will tell us is, in value terms, in dollar terms, what was the change in GDP over that period. Then to turn it into a percentage, I divide it by GDP at the start of the year and times it by 100. And that will give us the percentage growth rate, or the rate of change, which is what we want. So let's have a look at a little example. If I'm asked to calculate the percentage growth rate for a quarter, down here, real GDP for the September to December quarter, so we would call that December quarter. It should say September to December, but if it just said December, you've got to know it's from September to December. And we're going to use exactly the same formula, so I will take GDP at the end of the period, 501 minus 500, divided by GDP at the start of the period, which is 500. I can simplify this to 1 over 500. You would just plug that straight into your calculator, times it by 100, and you would get 0.2%. That is the rate of growth between here and here, the December quarter. Okay, that's the quarterly growth rate. The other way that you might get asked to calculate this is what we call year over year, from the September 2022 quarter to the September 2023 quarter. We're going to use exactly the same formula. We're just calculating the rate of change from this quarter to this quarter. We call it year over year. So again, we do 550 end of the period minus 500 start of the period divided by the start of the period. That would give us 50 over 500. You might not even have to put that in a calculator, which is going to equal 10%. Definitely not strong and sustainable. It's strong, but too much growth over that period. From there to there, we grew the economy by 10%. It's not sustainable. The last one I want to look at is what we call an annualized growth rate. And annualized just means taking a quarterly figure and turning it into an annual figure by timesing it by 4. Now remember, a quarter is 3 months. So in a year, there is 4 quarters. So the formula is just quarterly growth rate times by 4. Okay. The trick is you have to work out which quarter they're asking you about. In this example, it says calculate the annualized growth rate for the June quarter, which is March to June. So from here to here, and you can see that actually GDP's decreased in that over that time period, which means we will get a negative growth rate. So let's check though. We do 500, the end of the period, minus 500 minus 503, which is negative 3, over the start of the period, which is 503, times that by 100, and you're going to get a negative quarterly growth rate of 0.6%. The economy decreased by 0.6% over that period from there to there. Now, to turn that into an annualized growth rate, all we do is times that by 4, so we get negative 0.6% times by 4, which equals, you could do this without a calculator, negative 2.4%. That's our annualized growth rate for the June 2023 quarter. Hopefully that helps you. Those are the 4 calculations you need. Got a calculator now. I'm sure that's going to make it much easier for you economics students. Bye for now.